In the winter of 2024, on a remote mountainside in southern Argentina, a biologist witnessed a scene that seemed almost impossible. In the valley below, a herd of guanacos stretching nearly half a mile moved silently across the steppe, following a route their ancestors had traveled for thousands of years. Just 5 years earlier, this place had been a bankrupt sheep ranch. The ground had been grazed down to the mineral layer. The grass was gone, and rusting fences had carved the wilderness into fragments. Now, Quaron grass had grown knee-high, and at the edge of a canyon, a puma stood perfectly still, watching the herd of prey below. Predator and prey had returned to land once considered beyond recovery. But what happened after people removed 370 miles of fencing, causing an ecosystem that seemed dead to begin waking up again? Before the first strands of wire appeared, the Patagonian steppe functioned like a complete ecological machine. Guanacos migrated seasonally along ancient routes, grazing only the tops of grasses before moving on. Their droppings enriched the thin volcanic soil, while their hooves helped water seep into the ground without destroying the roots beneath. Following the guanaco herds were pumas, predators that kept prey populations within natural limits. The remains of their kills became food for Andean condors. Darwin's rees spread seeds across vast distances, while huemul deer quietly lived along the edges of the western forests. Every species was a link in the chain, and every link depended on the others. But beginning in the 1880s, industrial sheep ranching spread across this land. By the 1950s, more than 20 million sheep covered the Argentine steppe. Ranchers built hundreds of miles of fencing, dividing the grasslands into small parcels and blocking migration routes that had existed for thousands of years. Guanacos became trapped in wire fences or were shot. Pumas were systematically hunted and poisoned. Grass was eaten down to the roots, topsoil was carried away by the wind, and vast fields gradually turned into dust and stone. Eventually, the ranching industry itself collapsed. More than 500 ranches were abandoned. Over 90% of Patagonia showed signs of desertification, and the fences remained, cutting through a landscape that was nearly lifeless. After their success in the Iberá wetlands, Doug Tompkins and Christine Tompkins brought the rewilding model south to Patagonia. The idea sounded simple. Buy failed ranches, remove livestock, take down fences, restore native species, and then allow nature to complete the rest. Rewilding Argentina and local organizations began dismantling the network of wire fencing that divided roughly 180,000 hectares of land. Posts that had been driven into volcanic soil for decades had to be pulled out by hand. At the same time, camera traps were installed, pumas were fitted with satellite collars, guanacos were monitored, and recovery programs for Darwin's rees and huemul deer were launched. But as the project expanded, opposition grew. Many local families felt they were losing land that had supported their parents and grandparents. Some scientists also warned about genetic risks and argued that conservation decisions had not fully listened to critical voices. In your view, when a project saves an ecosystem but leaves local communities feeling that they have lost land, livelihoods, and identity, who should have the right to decide that place's future? I would really like to hear your answer. Leave a comment below and share your perspective. At first, scientists believed the Patagonian steppe would need decades to recover. The soil was too thin, rainfall was too scarce, and the winds seemed almost never to stop. Once the fences were gone, however, guanacos were the first animals to return. Herds that had been confined to roadsides and canyon floors began spreading across the open grasslands. Even more remarkably, they resumed summer and winter migration routes that had disappeared for generations, as though those ancient maps had remained encoded in their instincts. The guanacos' feeding behavior also helped bring the land back. They clipped only the upper parts of the plants, leaving the roots intact, and kept moving instead of overgrazing one area. Their manure was scattered widely, returning nutrients to the soil across the landscape. Within only 3 to 4 years, Quiron grass began to reappear, and wildflowers emerged in places that had once been reduced to dust and rock. Then the pumas followed their prey back into the region. An ecological chain that had seemed lost started moving again. The return of pumas affected far more than the balance between hunter and hunted. Guanaco carcasses left behind after kills provided food for Andean condors, and sightings of these enormous birds circling overhead became increasingly common. Darwin's Rees also began to rebound. From fewer than 20 individuals in 2015, their population within the Patagonia park system grew to about 60 by 2020, while their range expanded by more than 30%. As the birds traveled, they carried native seeds into areas where guanacos had already helped restore the grass cover. On the Chilean side, the huemul population rose from roughly 40 animals to nearly 150. Piece by piece, the ecological network was rebuilt. Guanacos nourished the grasslands. The grasslands supported herbivores, pumas regulated animal numbers, and scavengers and seed-dispersing birds helped close the cycle. What makes this recovery especially striking is how little machinery it required. Restoring 180,000 hectares through grading, reseeding, and erosion control would likely have cost hundreds of millions of dollars if people had attempted to engineer the process themselves. Nature, however, is carrying out that work on its own, using methods refined over millions of years. Today, from the rim of the Pinturas River Canyon, visitors can see a landscape resembling the scenes carved into nearby rock walls 9,000 years ago. Guanacos once again cross the grasslands, Andean condors ride rising currents of warm air, and pumas hide among the cliffs until nightfall. The old fence posts are still visible, but the wire is gone. In place of declining sheep ranches, trails, campsites, and a growing nature-based tourism economy are beginning to take shape. This revival is also helping store carbon in the soil, lower the risk of desertification, and demonstrate a simple truth. The most powerful restoration technology is not machinery or algorithms, but the natural processes that have operated for millions of years. Sometimes nature does not need people to repair everything. It only needs us to stop standing in the way. If you found this story remarkable, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss what comes next. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again soon.